Hi, I'm Wayne and this is Bastow Woodworking. The shop is a complete mess right now. We are about halfway through this radial arm saw cabinet project, and today we're going to do what we have not done so far, and that is set a realistic goal for the day. Things I'm trying to accomplish today include I'm going to get shelves installed in the cabinet so that all of the toolboxes from the deep storage area can be stored in that cabinet. I've been using a lot of that stuff more often, and having to get the ladder every time I need something has been a huge pain. So having all those toolboxes readily available will be great. That will also open up that wire rack to be lumber storage, which I am in dire need of right now. Then I can start to address how the second radial arm saw cabinet will be constructed. That might not happen today, and I need to kind of come to terms with that and maybe get the radial arm saw set back up in its original configuration so that it's usable for the time being. Another big goal for today is to set aside things that are no longer needed in the shop. Some of these things will be going into deep storage. Others will be going into a dumpster I'm having delivered in the next couple of days. I'm going to do my best to not hold on to anything that I don't see myself using. If it's something that is still perfectly usable, I will list it on Facebook Marketplace for somebody to come and pick up. If it's something like an old metal cabinet that has no utility anymore, it will be going in a dumpster. But first I need to get all of this stuff out of my way, which means it moves itself back out into the driveway for the time being. And by moves itself, I mean I time-lapse to me dragging all of these things out. I cut a 14-inch spacer for marking where my shelves are going to go. Most of my toolboxes are well under 12 inches tall, but there are some larger items like my circular saw that require more space. So this should give me plenty of room. I'll end up with two shelves that are 14 inches tall each, and then I'll have a slot in the top, which I'll likely build out a drawer in the future. I began by cutting a whole bunch of 1-inch strips on the table saw. These will be my shelf cleats. I then mounted the cleats to the cabinets using some wood glue and some pin nails. With one cleat in place, I could use my template to mark where the second cleat would go and put that in place as well. In all, I mounted 16 cleats, so it took a little while. I could then head over to the table saw to cut out my shelves for each side. And then to the radial arm saw to cut them all to length. I tacked the shelves in place with just a couple of pin nails in the front of each shelf. All the shelves are now in place, minus the center section for the radial arm saw. I'm not sure what I'm going to put in that middle section yet. It might just become scrap wood, in which case I would just put some rails for a bin to go on. But I have shelves in all the drawers. The end drawers over there, I used cutoffs from other pieces, so I had to put some shims in just to tighten things up. But it's all still plenty strong for the toolboxes I'm going to be putting on there. So now it's just a matter of getting all of the toolboxes off of the deep storage and putting them in here and make sure everything fits before I start actually finishing the top and everything. Cut all the shelves to 20 1/4 inches deep. The cabinet itself is 24 inches deep, so that gives me 3.5 inches of cable management and stuff like that behind in case I ever put electronics or anything in this cabinet. I still have some more stuff to load into the cabinet, but that will have to wait because I need access to that stuff first and everything is everywhere. But I think I'm in a good place now to put a coat of finish on the top. You might be wondering if I have, in this entire thing, made a large mistake by not putting a sacrificial surface down for the radial arm saw to cut into. And this was actually completely intentional. This radial arm saw, much like I was using it before, will only ever be used for dados. It's a very old 9-inch saw, and it's not great at doing through cuts. It gets bogged down quite easily. But I found that once the dado stack is moving and it has that momentum, it's actually a very capable dadoing machine because it is all cast iron and it is rock solid. So this will never be making a through cut, so it will never make contact with the cabinet. And since I work alone in my shop, I won't need to tell anybody that. So now I just need to sand and finish this so that I can then put a fence system in. The cabinet top is sanded enough for me to continue finishing. I'm not looking for anything perfect with this, so there are still some like gouges, some nail head holes and stuff like that, but this is a work surface, so I don't really care about that. So I cleaned it all off. It's sanded down to 220, which is plenty for workshop furniture. Now I'm going to hit it with a couple of coats of polyacrylic. This is the gloss stuff. It's also water-based, so put a thin coat on in the direction of the grain. You give it about 35 to 45 minutes for the initial coat to dry and harden. Then you just do a quick sanding with the grain in another coat. It's the same sanding procedure that I did on the router table, and that actually came out really nice. It has a nice slick surface, which is what I'm really looking for here. The polyacrylic is now mostly dry to the touch, so I can start planning out my fence system before sanding and then applying the second coat and probably final coat of polyacrylic. So I'm going to cut some 1-inch strips of plywood on the table saw, and then I'll probably just use a 2 or 3-inch strip of plywood as my actual fence. I have a lot of cutoffs that I can go through. Arguably the most important feature of a radial arm saw is the fence. If the fence is not perpendicular to the blade when the blade is set to 90, none of your angles will be correct. The easiest way I have found to make sure that my fence is always perpendicular to my blade is to use a couple of framing squares. I set one square to the blade, and then I set the other one along the 45-degree angle. That gives me a line across that is perpendicular to the blade. The last thing I want to do in this video is to reset this dado stack. It has pretty much the full stack on it right now because I was cutting rabbets with it and didn't feel like ever replacing any of the blades. Since I have so much of this 3/4 inch plywood, I'm going to set the dado stack to the width of that plywood. Just makes a lot more sense. Now we wait the 40 or so seconds for the blade to stop spinning. That's why I don't mind putting the power switch way up here, because if there was an emergency, hitting that's not going to stop the blade any sooner. So if something goes wrong, I'm just getting out of the way of the machine. Still spinning. Still going. It's usually at this point that I get tired of waiting and I grab a push stick and I just kind of slow the side of the blade. But we're going to just let it spin to stop. Still spinning. If I were to grab that, it'd still nick me. Okay. We can count that as stopped because it's... There we go. I think that's a good place to stop for now. We now have a functional radial arm saw station set up with a dado stack. There's still a bunch more stuff I need to load into this cabinet. I probably will end up doing a face frame on it, but now it can actually aid in that process and it's not just a hindrance sitting there not being able to be used. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to keep up to date with new projects as they are released. And until next time, thank you.